Hey, what's up everyone? We're about a week into the second half of 2020, and I don't want to sound like a pessimist or anything, but I don't think the first half went that well. Hey, what's up everyone? A couple weeks ago I did a video about how IK Multimedia's installation process is a little bit janky, but I said maybe their products sound great, and I said that I'd make a song using only IK Multimedia products. And that's what I've done for you today. I hope you guys had a good 4th of July weekend. Do you ever realize how the only thing left on a veggie tray is like cherry tomatoes? You know, I think that it's because veggie trays, they're really just a mechanism for ingesting ranch dressing, and it's really hard to dip cherry tomatoes in ranch dressing. But enough about that. Let's get into the project. So I didn't actually do a whole song. I did one part, but we'll listen to it. I'll start with, I used 4 instruments from Sampletank. The first is this Rhodes, or okay, so what did I do for the Rhodes? Well, I had a T-Rax plugin here. That's just basically doing some filtering. And then I had Amplitube in front of the signal, or Amplitube to give it some distortion. And that's just the Vibro King. I don't think I have any stomps. I did have us trying some, but they didn't sound good. So it's basically tube distortion on that Rhodes. A classic EQ, also just boosting a little bit at 200 kilohertz, and then a 1176 module to sort of give it a little bit compression and tighten it up. We can take a look at the Rhodes. This is Sampletank 4 that I used. I still have a hard time. This is the mix screen. Take that away. Here's the instrument screen. Yeah, Suitcase EP Hard. So it's interesting because they have license to use Fender's name for the amplifiers, but apparently not for the keyboards, because this is called a Suitcase Electric Piano Hard. In Sampletank, you know, I had to learn it pretty quick, but there's an effects rack here, and that's kind of annoying. This mixer here, you see all of the things, but you can't really click on them. You have to fix the parameters, you have to click down here. But if you notice, everything's bypassed except for the EQ comp. Is not bypassed. That's how I wanted it anyway, because I wanted to do the processing here on the inserts with T-Rax and with an Amplitube amplifier. So we can go back to the beginning, our Rhodes sound is as such. Okay, next you'll notice that I have a pad here. We can solo the pad. Let me get on solo defeat on my talkback channel real quick. Talkback channel. Okay, so we can solo the pad, and it sounds like this. And the reason I went with Sampletank 4 for all of this stuff is because I sort of started to understand the workflow. The back end is here. I did a low pass filter here. I adjusted the envelope of the attack, and that was really nice. The interesting thing is that Sampletank will load syntronic patches, but you actually don't get the instrument control. So if I put in a syntronic patch, we can take a look at it. You can choose by instruments. So J8, that's a famous synthesizer. And then we choose, I don't know, flanger bender or whatever. Okay. You get these instrument controls. Now, if I load this in to Sampletank 4, so I'll just switch my instrument to Sampletank 4, I actually don't get the same instrument controls, even though I can load instrument, search for flanger bender. Oops. Flanger bender. I can load the patch, but I actually don't get the instrument controls. Oh, what? It didn't load? Come on. You have to double click it. There we go. And you do get these controls, the effects controls, but on the instrument panel, it's the same. It's not the same interface. You don't get the synth interface. I thought that was a little strange. Let's just get rid of this track though. So I used Sampletank for everything. The other two instruments I used, I just had a shaker here in the beginning. And to get that stereo sort of effect, I used a T-Rax plugin, the only thing on this shaker sample, which is the tape echo. So I had it going back and forth. This is kind of cool. You can set your per channel, A channel, B channel. That's like your stereo channels. So if one channel is a little bit louder than the other, you sort of get a cool stereo effect for the tape echo. And then the final instrument I used from Sampletank was the Neil Peart drum kit. And we'll go ahead and hear it come in here. Mama always said don't take it. And one thing that was interesting about this is that you don't actually get granular control of the instruments. How do I get back to the instrument? There we go. So I had to load it as a multi: kicks, snares, toms, hi-hats, rides, crashes, because I like to pitch my kick drum and snare drum to meet the key of the song that I'm playing in. I think that that's one big thing. So by loading the kicks, oh crap, you go to this page. So you have the kicks selected. You can actually pitch the kicks, and you can see I've pitched it down just a touch. And you can have filter resonance and stuff. So if you wanted to pitch the snares, you come in here to the second channel. So you have granular control over stuff, but you have to load it as a multi. It's not like others where you can sort of click on individual drums and pitch them and affect their envelopes and stuff. You have to do it as a multi in Sampletank 4, which is a little janky, but the Neil Peart kit, the samples sound great. So here's the solo of the beat. And then everything else I played in audio. So that was my Sampletank 4 instruments. And the reason I didn't use Sampletank 3 is because it kept crashing on me and putting out squealy noises. So let's just go back to the beginning, and you'll hear these backup vocals come in. And I obviously haven't had the chance to auto-tune those, but there's no processing on them. They all just get sent to a bus, which is TR5 equal, which is EQ plugin, and then an LA2A. And that is the same for the lead vocal, which was the scratch track that I just kept. So if we go in here and look, there's an equal plugin, and this is sort of like Fab Filter or Frequency in Cubase. It just is a little confusing because if you click anywhere, they give you a new node, and you'll have to kind of go in and X that mode out. That's sort of why my high shelf looks a little wonky, but I figure unless you're a dog, you can't really hear anything above this, I don't know, 17K. So that's supposed to be a high shelf, but you choose your... And I wish there were like little labels of what it is. I mean, obviously you're mostly going to be using parametrics, filters, and shelves. But if we load up a plugin like Frequency, which is the closest analog that Steinberg has to equal, you can choose peak, cut at a certain amount, low shelf, high shelf, and notch. And it's like, okay, I know exactly what's going on there. For this, it's like, choose one of these. But what is cool is, I'll just add a node. You can have, like the parametric, the type. So UK Modern, UK Classic. So we can have a UK Classic parameter there. But I would rather it be a UK Modern. And you can see I've adjusted a pretty heavy bass boost to make my voice sound cooler. And then the LA2A, we'll just bypass that. Fantastic sounding LA2A. I like the way that my vocals came out. I might end up using this LA2A or white 2A. I don't think you're allowed to call it an LA2A. On future vocals because I just like the way it came out. Now both the backgrounds and the lead are going to a reverb also. Mama always said don't take advice from strangers. And those are all sends on the track. So if we look at our send here, we're sending to Vox Verb, and we can take a look at our Vox Verb. This is the T-Rax 5 classic room reverb, and these are my settings. I didn't go into the advanced settings. I just sort of used diffusion, decay time, level, frequency dampening. I will note that there's these 4 sliders on the side. I have no idea what they do, and I don't think they have any effect on the sound.
You open yourself up to a world of endless dangers.
Okay, so that is the vocals, and the T-Rex 5, they ended up sounding pretty darn good. Let's take a look at where I think that the IK Multimedia plugin shined the most, which was, of course, guitar and bass. Amplitube does sound good. I'm not gonna front, especially bass. I love the way the bass came out. Let's take a look. Where are my inserts on the bass?
Mama.
Oh, I have send selected. There we go. Here's my Amplitube 4. So the bass, I love the sound of this. I use the SVX collection. And the only effects I have on it are before the amp, I have an envelope filter. And then after the amp, I just have the standard compressor.
Always said, don't take advice from strangers.
I love the way it sounds. It's one of the best sounding bass guitar plugins I've ever heard. And if you don't know what an envelope filter does, I'm just gonna flex a little bit and play real quick. An envelope filter will have more effect in the upper registers, which I didn't use, but so if you go up here, but I love the sound of an envelope filter on bass. It's a secret weapon pedal if you want to get some pretty cool spaced out bass sounds. And then of course the amp I chose was this SVX VR, a classic bass amp, and I have everything cranked pretty high. You know, everything's above 12 o'clock for the most part. And then and the compressor I chose was just the standard compressor that comes as a stomp box. And I think it sounds pretty good to my ears. And you can hear that envelope filter making a little bit of a hissing. Then we can go to guitar. The guitar is very simple in this song, just sort of complementing on the backbeat.
Don't take advice from strangers.
This is the classic EQ to do filtering, both high pass and low pass filtering. And then the Amplitube 4, just a twin reverb. And I have the slash booster on it just to give it a little bit of distortion, then nothing after the amp. So it's basically just a stomp box giving it a little boost into the amp.
You open yourself up to a world of endless dangers.
And then on the other end, this was in the mixing phase, I had equal and the guitar was clashing with the vocals. So I found out where that was and I just pulled a little bit of that out of the guitar signal. So that is the extent of the instruments, the plugins, and the guitar amp simulators that I used to create this track. Now there's one more thing that IK Multimedia, that T-Rex has, that we should look at, and that is mastering tools. So they have 3 mastering tools. T-Rex 5.1, we'll look at that one first. Then they have the Larson mastering console, and then they have this T-Rex 5 suite. Now, the only issue is that I recorded this too hot. So we're going to take all of these, Q-link them, and find one that's at unity gain, and give ourselves another 6 decibels of headroom. So this is what we're listening with for the mix. And this is T-Rex 1. This is supposed to be sort of an all-in-one mastering plugin. You sort of have how much you're pushing, the overall end volume. You can include bass, transients, body, focus. That's sort of like mid-range, low mids, obviously, and then width. And it's pretty amazing what you can do with this one plugin to a master. So let's reset everything. Okay, this is how it comes out of the box. I was playing around with different plugins, but immediately you get more level, but
Mama always said, don't take advice from strangers. You open yourself up to a world of endless dangers. Start listening to people that you love and trust, or you trip up.
so the knobs, I mean, you could just mess around with it, but you can hear almost immediately just putting it on maximizes the signal. Oh, and I should probably, if we're going to do this max, I'll turn off my brick wall limiter that I use while recording videos. But you can see it maximizes the signal to negative 0.1. It basically sausages out the signal.
Find your face in the dust. Mama always said, don't take advice from strangers.
And these two green knobs here are your gain reduction. You can see we're not pushing too much more than a decibel or two, which is kind of, you don't want too much gain reduction on your master channel. And of course, if you were doing this for real, you would do a full mix down and you would print everything. But this isn't for real, this is just quick and dirty. So that's T-Rax 5.1. It's a one plugin that can do all your mastering. Let's bypass that. And the next one is the Larson mastering console. Unfortunately, this is what I'm getting when I try to use the Larson mastering console. It messes up everything. So fortunately, it exists as a standalone. So I did just print this out, and we have the Larson mastering console here. You have to bring in a song. So I've printed the song, The Rough Mix, with 6 dBs of gain reduction. Now the problem is I can't oh yeah, I can bypass it. So here it is bypassed. So what the Larson console does is it takes a chain that's used at a mastering house, the Larson mastering house, I assume, and you can set thresholds depending on how much signal you have going in. So, you know, if you're really close to clipping, you might want a higher threshold. But it basically takes this signal chain, and when you apply different presets, like I had pop rock applied, but if you apply hard rock, you know, it'll take stuff out of the chain. But you don't get to choose these. You really have these 4 knobs and then your thresholds and makeup. And this will apply a mastering chain to your potential. Let's go back to pop rock. That's sort of what I heard this on. Let's try pop rock more glue. Let's listen to it. And the only controls are sort of like an EQ control. And then you can push the input, and then the push knob just pushes everything. So you can see it pushes all 5 bands together. So yeah, but it sounds pretty good. That's the Larson mastering console. Do you want to proceed? Yes, I do. And then the final plugin I want to show you is T-Rax 5 Suite. It's their mastering suite. So when you open it up, it comes loaded with 1 because 1 is like their marquee mastering processor. But here on the side, it's basically everything in T-Rax that you own, you can load into your mastering chain. But what I want to focus on more is master match. So we'll get rid of this. We'll add this to the chain. One of these buttons adds it to the chain. Now it's in the chain. So you have to push the on button and then this button to add it to the chain. And then you can add a reference track. So I'll add a reference track from my file manager. Oh yeah, and when you switch windows, if your plugin goes away but you want it to stay on top, you can actually click always on top, and then it'll stay on top when you click on your file manager on a different window. So I'll add Spiderhead by Cage the Elephant. It'll load it in, I have it learn the reference, and then I go to the beginning of my song, and I have it learn the source, then I play through the song. So it builds a spectral analysis of the reference you put in, and you click learn reference. You click learn source, and you play through the song. And then you click this to unlearn source when the song is over, and then all you have to do is hit match, and it'll assign spectral and level matching levels so we can go back and listen to the master that it has cooked up. And as you can tell, it's super loud. So for my money, that verges on clipping, to be honest. That's a little too loud. The Larson mastering console sounds the best to me. However, with plugins like One and all of the various EQs and compressors in here, I'm sure you can dig out a pretty awesome master sound using one of the tools available in T-Rax 5. So this was how I used exclusively IK Multimedia products within Cubase, except for Larson Mastering Console, which I had to use on standalone, to create a track. I hope you found this useful. I do think the IK Multimedia stuff sounds good. I did have several issues with functionality, crashes, loud noises coming out of Sampletank 3. I was trying to use a piano from Miroslav Philharmonic, and it kept cutting out sound, and I have to restart my DAW. That's when I switched to the Rhodes through Sampletank 4. But Sampletank 4 was working solidly for me. Amplitube 4 has some great sounds in it, and you can mix and master just about anything with the tools included in T-Rax. So, I hope you found this helpful. If you have, feel free to like or subscribe, and take care of yourselves, everyone. Peace.